never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd get to walk along. I saw Ariana Grande walk along there, and now it's going to be me.
I just want to be part of that world so much. The idea of my records sitting on the shelf amongst the other ones is just like the coolest thing ever to me.
Make some noise for the Grandmaster Four Tet, please! Make some
I grew up into music from a young age, and I've always been excited by music. And I remember vividly being a little kid and my dad coming home with new records and being totally interested in them all. And it meant as well that once I started developing my own taste, it wasn't just like, oh, I found this record and I really like it. Kind of being taught the idea by him that if you find something that you really like, you're interested in something, learn more about it. Big Space Supersport, track Super Plus. This is a band that when I was about 14 or 15, I started seeing them play loads around London and Camden and places, and one of the bands that kind of inspired me most wanted to make music. First big thing I did was a band called Fridge, kind of more of like a rock band playing kind of experimental rock music. It was like our high school band, and that was kind of the beginning of everything. I was in a record shop one day. I would go after school to go and buy new records and stuff that were coming out, and I met this guy called Luke in the record shop who just got talking to me. He was in a band called Emperor's New Clothes who were on acid jazz. They were in the studio at the time and recording a record produced by Trevor Jackson, and he was just starting Output Records.
Like Luke, bass player from Graham, he bumped into him, and Kieran gave him a cassette. I listened to it, I was like, yeah, this is pretty interesting. So it just went from there, really. And he was making these weird records in his bedroom with his mates. They were like teenagers in a little basement bedroom making weird records.
Yeah, we met Trevor Jackson and just started kind of recording and doing our own thing, just set up in like the drummer's bedroom, and records were coming out and things were happening, but they didn't really make sense to me. Like Trevor would be like, oh, Giles Peterson's playing your single on the radio. I'd be like, who's Giles Peterson? I didn't know, like the sort of things he was on about, I didn't know anything of at all. And it was quite nice.
Thank you. And he was just a really sharp kid, and we had similar influences, but at the same time, it's weird because like he didn't know anything about hip hop, and I didn't know a lot about he was listening to Stereo Lab and a lot of these kind of more indie alternative bands, like British ones I didn't know about. And so we'd spend evenings I'd play him like Souls of Mischief, and which were records that were fairly obvious to me, and he'd play me things he didn't hear. So it was really, he hadn't heard, and it was really a great relationship, musically. And I was very lucky enough to hook up with Kieran, and from there things started to roll. And I never in a million years would I ever think that Kieran would, not undermining his talent, hugely talented, but I never at that time thought he would ever be as popular.
If you're really good, you're supposed to do all this business. You're supposed to be like, I've seen this on TV. Yeah, this is where, I make all the records and everything here. But I was in this band and I desperately wanted to make electronic music and I didn't have the means. And then what happened was I got to university and I was able to get my first computer with like the student loan I got at college. And that changed everything for me. And that's when I made the first Four Tet record. The music stuff was kind of kicking off, like the Fridge stuff was coming out, but then the Four Tet stuff started coming out, that was doing well, and then Fridge got signed to like a major label, and I quit college. And I found that from that moment onwards, when we got the record and I quit college and I moved back to London, this kind of new mentality kicked into me, this kind of like wake-up call, and I was being, it never occurred to me that I could just be a musician all the time. And I was like just suddenly in the middle of it. That's when people like Trevor would just be like, all right, these are all the sort of things that are going on. That's when I discovered the existence of DJing.
Kieran used to come to all my early DJ sets, so he's taken the mantle and he's made it quite, and it's flattering. You know, I was at the time one of his favourite DJs.
And having people like Trevor around me made me feel very relaxed about, you know, I would see him do all sorts of things just following his heart and instinct. And I think having somebody like that around made me just feel like, oh yeah, you just go out there and play your favourite records, whatever you think's cool. So I would do little bits of DJing like that, but I didn't take it hugely seriously. It was like a fun thing. I thought, I only want to make records. I don't really care about being on stage or doing shows so much. You know, I feel the need to be constantly getting on with music because, you know, it's something that it makes sense to me. It gives me a sense of a reason to live. I remember when I was starting out, my records were coming out, but it was all very kind of small, and I was making a living more from remixing and stuff then. And things have gone really well for me. Like each thing's led to another bigger thing, you know. And I had the experience of small indie label, big major label, and then I started releasing with Domino for a few years. I've signed to like Domino and Radiohead. They invite me to come and open for them on this tour they're doing in Spain. One of the things that was really cool about it as well was not only was it so exciting that they wanted me to do that, but it also gave me a kick up the arse to be like, hang on, I need to get involved in live performance in some sort. Around this time, you know, I couldn't get a booking agent. People were like, you're not going to play festivals and stuff with a laptop. People didn't want to work with me. And the Radiohead thing happened, and then, yeah, it was a bit more like, okay, well, maybe this guy is going to do shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they really helped me out at that
That's
moment,
brilliant.
sort of creatively and with people taking me more sort of seriously. Next thing I know, it's like, all right, well now actually people are showing up to this, even though I'm clicking my mouse as fast as possible on Cool Edit. You know? Big turning point for me in the decade was kind of around 2005 when Everything Ecstatic came out, which of all the records I've done, that's the one that involved the biggest touring schedule, biggest press schedule, and all those things. The final show I did in London at the end was at Hammersmith Palais, and we did this big night, and Faust came and played. You know, it was like this incredible night for me, sold out. It was like me and Faust and explosions in the sky. But that moment when I was like, this is perfect, I was like, well, it's done. Yeah. Oh, like I've done it. Like I've done. I wasn't in there thinking like, now we need to really start pushing up the marketing so we can do Brixton next time or something. I was like, no, actually I'm completely done.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to do, got to think about something else now. I'd put out a bunch of records, but I was kind of looking for something different to do. And I'd been at a festival where there'd been a sort of night of duos of saxophone and drums. It just made me think, you know, what if it was, you know, like electronics and drums, and more the electronics sort of stuff that I'm doing. And just as I was thinking that, a friend of mine in France put us in touch. If I'm going to like collaborate with other people, it's much more likely to be the people who do things that I would never even think about doing myself. You know, like just getting together with someone who does exactly the same thing as me, it just makes things weird. The main collaboration over the last few years has been stuff I do with this guy, Steve Reid.
Music is not frequencies or anything. It goes beyond the physical realm. The source of it is not physical. It's like talking in tongues. It's like a language.
You speak the same language?
We do.
The whole thing was exciting for me. It was like
And it still
a
is to
new
me.
world, you know, like it just suddenly, it gave me a new confidence. It made me realise that I could do things musically that I hadn't realised I could do. I had no interest in dance music or anything like that at all. I was really interested in like jazz and improvised music and all these things. But then I suddenly get this call from Timo Maas, being like, he's got this party in Ibiza, DC-10. What happened? His booking agent, this guy David Levy, was a big fan of mine and said to him, you should get Kieran to come and play at your residency at DC-10. And I was like, I've never been to Ibiza. This whole thing seems not in my normal sort of world. But James Holden had started putting out some records. The Border Community stuff had started coming out, and I heard that was really exciting to me. I was like, somebody who's working in my sort of world makes records that 15,000 people go crazy to at a rate. And at the beginning, I can't hold the room at all. Like, it's disaster.
You played yesterday, didn't you? Just talk to me. How was your set? How did it go?
A bit of a disaster. Some technical mishaps, I think. I just started doing this stuff with Timo Maas at the end, and I think the notion of kind of being a DJ playing dance music was a bit more in my head. I do a year with him, and by the end, I'm getting pretty good. And then James was starting a Border Community night at the end, and then did a year of that. And by the end of it, I headlined the main room and smashed it. That's when I took a residency at Plastic People. And then the drummer I was working with, the jazz drummer, he passed away. It left this massive sort of void for me. And then I was like, well, I don't want to work with somebody else. I'm just going to start making music on my own again. But then when I sat down to make music on my own, I couldn't not think about trying to make club records. And that's when I started actually making records for the first time, where I was like, I'm going to make something that's good in a club. And I started making things specifically for Plastic People, I think. Once I got to a certain point, I was like, so much of what's going on in this sort of industry I'm involved in is inefficient and using up my time. And this coincided with becoming a father. It would just made me think, I could be at the park with my daughter right now. Why am I doing this Australian phone interview? I'm just going to get rid of everything that is not fun to me anymore and doesn't feel like it's got some like deep meaning to it.
I miss it. Those days when nothing ever really mattered. So willing to give it all deep into you might just shatter now. You're scared of time. Gotta beat the clock now. It's a waste of time.
Even if I'm making a decision that I know will lose loads of record sales or potentially not be the best sort of traditional career move, I'm going to go for it. I don't do press, I don't do interviews. I mean, I'm doing an interview here with you now.
This one doesn't count.
And this happened around 2010. I've really stuck to that, and it's paid off. Everything's gone so well for me in the last 10 years that things have just got stronger and stronger. And
For Four Tet, the Grandmaster.
one of the things I really like about what I do is it's really kind of mixed up. You know, I'll do like a remix one day, and then I'll be DJing in a club the next day, and then I'll be like on tour or playing in a band or something the week after. And you know, if someone says, "Do you want to work on a film bit for this week?" then that sounds pretty good. I haven't done that yet. So yeah, things. Yeah, I'm open to anything really.